Your words are your greatest weapon, or your deadliest trap. One promise, one slip, one careless sentence can destroy years of power. Machiavelli knew it: silence builds empires, but loose tongue burn them down. The question is, are you controlling your mouth, or is your mouth controlling you? Listen, the fiercest adversary you'll ever face might just be the words that escape from your own mouth. Right now, someone may be assembling a case against you using phrases you casually offered weeks or months ago, sitting with those old utterances like ammunition as they map out how to topple you. A flippant quip you made at a party can be turned into proof. A confidence you trusted to the wrong ear becomes leverage, and a momentary lapse of candor becomes the lever that shifts the whole game. Most people act as if language evaporates once spoken, as if conversations vanish into a fog and nobody remembers. That complacency is a modern blind spot. Time and again, high achievers have been felled, not by outside plots, but by sentences they wish they could unsay. Dynasties dissolve because somebody talked too freely. Friendships fracture because loose talk corroded trust. Ancient strategists taught a lesson that many of us have lost. The mouth is simultaneously our most powerful tool and our most treacherous liability. It broadcasts vulnerabilities, hands rivals the keys they need to outmaneuver you, and exposes the private architecture of your mind. A master of influence observed long ago that those who steward their speech steer their outcomes. Those who neglect that stewardship become casualties of their own verbal impulses. Over the course of this message, I'll walk you through 10 psychological snares that turn casual conversation into self-inflicted harm, and I'll add practical perspective so you can walk away with habits that protect your reputation and your future. First, anger as a truth extractor. When fury floods your system, your reasoning centers dial down, and your tongue begins to betray you, unloading every grievance and suppressed slight as if you were offering testimony. The person who provoked you in that instant is not merely an antagonist. They become a live interrogator, watching how you fracture and extracting the raw details of your inner landscape. When you give yourself permission to combust, you become foreseeable. Once someone knows the exact buttons that set you off, they hold a remote control over future encounters and can pull those triggers when it suits them. The real harm is less the momentary sentence than the audience that records it in memory. A fit of rage becomes a permanent data point opponents use to question your judgment. The elite handle anger privately, process it away from prying ears, and answer in a measured way that converts emotion into strategy. If you want a practical mnemonic, adopt this spoken pledge to yourself. I let heat pass through me without burning my future. Second, triumph unguarded. Success is intoxicating and creates an appetite for accolades and explanation. When the applause rises, many people feel compelled to narrate every step of their ascent, to attribute credit, to describe the exact methods they used. Every explanation you give of how you beat the odds is essentially a blueprint you hand to imitators and rivals. The desire to be admired and admired loudly undoes more victors than failure ever does, because by detailing your moves, you teach opponents how to replicate and then surpass you. The wise protect their processes. They celebrate inwardly and speak sparingly about the mechanics of their wins, revealing only what is necessary and never enough to build a rival's strategy. Keep the details thin and treat praise as a private currency rather than a public ledger. Your affirmation here could be, "My achievements speak with silence." Third, intoxicants and loosened lips. Alcohol rarely invents new secrets. It dismantles the barriers that keep risky thoughts contained. A drink or two lowers the mental firewall, makes confidences flow, and turns casual gatherings into harvests for anyone who's clear-headed enough to listen and remember. The phenomena that take years of observation to discover can sometimes be pried loose in a single night when judgment is blurred. Skilled manipulators design convivial settings, encourage more drinks, and gently steer the conversation toward your pain points. They'll be stone-cold, sober, and file away everything you confess. Those late-night admissions about relationships, finances, or strategy become sober evidence later on. If what you value can be used against you, favor lucidity over camaraderie when stakes are meaningful. A compact to hold is, I preserve clarity over temporary rapport. Fourth, the collapse under pressure. As deadlines narrow and expectations pile up, many people discover that their composure was thinner than they thought. Under stress, the courteous mask slips and raw, often unhelpful disclosures surface. You reveal you're overwhelmed, unprepared, or unsure, and you do this to people you trust most, unknowingly creating a map of vulnerability. Pressure doesn't just test you, it hands your adversaries the coordinates to exploit you later. Those closest to you, family, friends, colleagues, become unintentional channels for sensitive information that, once leaked, can be weaponized. The difference between a dignified struggle and an exposed collapse is your response to discomfort. Manage your process, keep your private evaluations private, and turn pressure into a refining force rather than a record of failing. Repeat to yourself, I convert pressure into measured action. Fifth, sympathy as a sieve. Emotional appeals and requests for understanding are legitimate human behaviors, but they are also tactics that skilled opportunists use to siphon useful intelligence. When you reach out for empathy, you can inadvertently outline your weak points, timelines, and dependencies, the very things others can use to preempt or undermine you. People trained in influence don't confront head-on. They solicit confidences softly, mirror your pain, and create an illusion of solidarity to lower your guard. They aren't there to heal, they're there to harvest. So be selective about who earns your vulnerability. Reserve personal disclosures for trusted allies who have proven reciprocity, and document nothing you would not want weaponized. A helpful personal dictum is, I give grief carefully and only to the trustworthy. Sixth, flattery's funnel. Praise feels good and naturally encourages reciprocity, but when adulation comes from those whose incentives are opaque, it's often the prelude to extraction. Flatterers prime you to loosen your guard. Once validated, you're likelier to explain motives, describe future plans, and rationalize unconventional moves. These details become a roadmap for anyone who wants to copy or counter you. The antidote is a disciplined skepticism toward effusive compliments. Accept warmth, but don't treat flattery as clearance to reveal your playbook. Build a habit of asking yourself before you respond, who benefits from what I'm about to disclose? Then answer accordingly. The short vow to carry here, compliments do not equal clearance. Seventh, oversharing in networks. Modern life multiplies listeners, and casual remarks ripple far further than in previous eras. Conversations that once lived in confined rooms now scatter across devices and feeds. A stray line shared in earnest can travel and be archived in ways you never intended. Even private platforms leak. Screenshots and recordings immortalize what you thought ephemeral. Guard your boundaries online as fiercely as you guard them offline. Curate what you share. Assume everything can be replayed publicly, and resist the temptation to narrate day-to-day decisions that opponents can turn into a pattern. A simple tech rule is useful. Assume permanence. Post with restraint. Eighth, the digital breadcrumb trail. Every message, email, or casual memo you send is a potential breadcrumb into your decision-making. People reconstruct intent from fragments. A single offhand line in a group chat can be strung together with other snippets to create a portrait that may not be flattering. Professionals compartmentalize sensitive projects, minimize written trails for high-risk topics, and use deliberate formal channels for important communications instead of casual chatter. When possible, document only what you must and keep narrative context tight. Your procedural mantra: I write with purpose, I speak with strategy. 9th, false intimacy. Forging closeness accelerates cooperation, but manufactured intimacy is a tool some use to disarm you. When someone fast-tracks a deep bond, shares intense personal confessions early, or pushes for rapid mutual disclosure, treat that acceleration with caution. True rapport takes time. When it's fast-tracked, ask what the other person stands to gain. Protect your timeline for sharing core concerns and keep early-stage relationships at the level of practical partnership until trust is proven by action, not by words alone. Your guard phrase: authenticity earns access slowly. 10th, reputation. Erosion through casual honesty. There is a place for transparency, but an undisciplined appetite for authenticity creates a record that others can curate against you. Leaks, misstatements, even when true, can be excerpted to create a narrative that serves someone else's aims. Think in terms of legacy. How will this sentence sound to an impartial listener who wants to make you look misguided or reckless? If your statements can be reframed to harm your objectives, reframe them first. Opt for composure over confession when consequences have teeth. Internalize this line: I speak with regard to what my future self will need. Those 10 traps: enraged disclosure, celebratory overexposure, inebriated candor, stress collapse, sympathy-sourced extraction, flattery-enabled leaks, network oversharing, digital breadcrumbing, engineered intimacy, and casual reputation decay are ubiquitous. Almost everyone will encounter them at some point, but the wise spot them before they become crises. Beyond just warning you, I'll add tangible practices I've found valuable for protecting your agency. Cultivate a short list of safe confidants, people who've repeatedly proven discretion and whose incentives align with yours. Practice a pause routine, literally counting to 10 or using a standard phrase like, I'll get back to you, whenever a conversation nudges you toward revealing something strategic. Keep a private journal for friction-free processing, rather than offloading stressful details to listeners who might not keep them. Choose environments for high-stakes talks where you control the recording possibilities, and rehearse neutral, non-committal responses that deflect probing while maintaining social warmth. Another high-return habit is to separate your emotional airings from decision-making conversations. Vent privately or in therapy, then decide in clear-headed sessions where the stakes and audiences are appropriate. Also, adopt structural safeguards with technology. Use ephemeral messaging for personal banter that truly must be time-limited, but refrain from discussing business strategy in channels that can be archived indefinitely. When offered compliments or success curiosity, redirect the conversation to lessons learned rather than tactical specifics. Teach at the level of principle, not process, so you can be generous with wisdom without gifting a competitor your manual. When you feel the urge to align with a new ally quickly, slow the pace of intimacy, intentionally exchange small favors, and observe reciprocity before revealing critical dependencies. If you're prone to anger, build a ritual that lets you process intensity privately. Exercise, a walk, meditation, or simply writing the hot thought down and not sending it buys perspective and prevents permanent damage. Remember that vulnerability is a currency. Spend it with mindful accounting, not in impulse. In closing, this is not a counsel of paranoia but of prudence. Speech is a resource that compounds used wisely. It can open doors and create alliances. When used recklessly, it compounds into liabilities that are hard to unwind. Treat words like the legal contracts they often become, and you'll keep the initiative in your own hands. If you want a single compact to carry into every exchange, choose this adapted commitment and say it silently before you speak. My voice advances my cause. It does not betray it. Keep that in your head as you navigate relationships, celebrations, conflicts, and channels, and you'll find that many of the disasters others suffer never come near you. Guard your mouth, steward your disclosures, and design your speech so it serves your long-term aims rather than someone else's short-term advantage. That discipline separates those who rise and stay risen from those who fall because they gave their opponents the script. There is a very subtle kind of trap that ensnares people not through obvious confrontation, but through carefully staged vulnerability. Some individuals deliberately present themselves as fragile, misunderstood, or broken, and they weave together touching stories of difficulty that feel authentic enough to stir your compassion. They reveal selective weaknesses and curated hardships, painting themselves as people who need rescuing. While you are caught up in the role of helper, feeling noble for offering support, they are not actually seeking salvation. They are collecting intelligence. Every question you answer, every reassurance you give, and every personal detail you disclose becomes part of the silent transaction. What appears to be empathy and connection is in reality extraction and manipulation. The sympathy ploy works so effectively because it inverts the normal structure of power. Instead of seeing them as a potential, it's crucial to understand the difference between real vulnerability and staged performance. Genuine openness is messy, inconsistent, and often uncomfortable. When someone is truly struggling, it rarely looks polished or neatly rehearsed. But those who use false vulnerability as a weapon present their hardships like a script, smooth, convincing, and perfectly timed. The person who tells you the flawless sob story, whose timing feels almost too perfect, is not always a friend in need. More often than not, they are a predator disguised as prey. Your compassion, in these cases, becomes their tactical advantage. Every piece of private information you reveal out of solidarity turns into ammunition. Every admission you offer to strengthen the bond is catalogued and saved for the day they need leverage against you. The Renaissance thinker Niccolo Machiavelli once observed that people are so eager to satisfy their immediate emotional impulses that deceivers never lack victims. This insight is timeless. When your immediate instinct is to be helpful, understanding, and noble, you create a blind spot. While you are focused on being a decent human being, they are focused on exploiting your decency. Your goodwill becomes a tool they use to advance their own agenda. The lesson here is not to suppress your compassion, but to manage it wisely. True resilience means showing care without broadcasting your inner struggles. It means offering help without trading away your secrets. It means showing humanity without handing others the keys to dismantle you. The balance between kindness and guardedness is one of the most difficult skills to master, but failing to learn, it ensures you will eventually become someone else's prey. Repeat this to yourself as a principle. I offer help without exposing myself. Now consider another snare: the unspoken economy of information. Every social circle, whether in professional networks, friend groups, or families, functions on the trading of knowledge. Conversations are not just idle talk, they are exchanges of currency. When you share gossip, reveal a confidence, or casually disclose an insider detail, you are not simply chatting, You are bargaining in an invisible marketplace where information is the most valuable commodity. Most people are disastrous negotiators in this economy, giving away priceless details while receiving nothing in return. In this social marketplace, there are predictable rules. Knowledge tends to travel upward toward those who hold influence, while betrayals trickle downward toward those with less power. The individual who consistently gathers stories, insights, and secrets without ever leaking their own accumulates quiet authority. The one who endlessly shares, confesses, and exposes without collecting anything of value loses status and becomes dispensable. Within every community, there are information brokers, people who appear interested, empathetic, and trustworthy, but whose real business is collecting intelligence. Your secrets are their merchandise, and your trust is simply the cost of admission. The greatest danger of gossip is not in what you reveal about others, but in what it communicates about you. Every story you spread demonstrates to others that you are willing to breach confidence. Every private matter you discuss marks you as unreliable. Every careless detail you share becomes permanent evidence of your character. Once again, Machiavelli captured this perfectly when he noted that humans often prefer how the world should be to how it really operates. Many people think gossip is harmless, bonding just another way to pass time. In truth, it is information warfare disguised as entertainment. Your words are traded like resources, and while you cling to how it should work, the sharp ones exploit how it actually works. To master this hidden economy, become an observer instead of a distributor. Train yourself to listen carefully, store information quietly, and contribute nothing of significance in return. Those who cannot resist the urge to talk eventually sabotage themselves, while those who stay disciplined build silent power. Practice this affirmation until it becomes instinct. Secrets find their way to me, but mine stay locked away. Let's move to another trap, the one that arises when authority challenges you. Power, whether in the workplace, in families, or in communities, often confronts people unfairly. Your instinct in such moments is to defend yourself passionately, to argue your case, to prove your worth, to show that you were right all along. But this instinct, natural as it feels, is dangerous. In hierarchical structures, authority figures are not truly seeking explanations. They are testing you. Many challenges from above are disguised evaluations, designed to measure whether you can remain composed under fire, whether you can tolerate criticism, and whether you can manage yourself without emotional eruption. When you respond defensively, with long justifications or emotional arguments, you fail the test. Instead of appearing capable, you reveal immaturity. Instead of inspiring respect, you expose fragility. The fairness you expect does not exist in power systems, and the respect you crave will never be delivered through arguments, only through consistent results. Each attempt to justify yourself becomes another piece of evidence, confirming that you lack the ability to manage pressure. Every outburst or extended defense becomes a signal that you cannot yet be trusted with greater responsibility. Machiavelli bluntly wrote that politics has little to do with morality. The outrage you feel about being treated unfairly may be morally valid, but in the world of power, it is strategically irrelevant. The choice is simple: adapt to the rules of power or be broken by them. The wise respond to authority not with protest, but with calm compliance paired with extraordinary performance. They let their work prove their value, not their words. They recognize that criticism, today, if endured with composure, can transform into opportunity tomorrow. Repeat this principle to yourself: my results speak louder than my arguments. Next, think about the lure of revenge through revelation. When relationships collapse, especially in betrayal, You may hold an arsenal of sensitive information about the other person, their failures, weaknesses, fears, and hidden mistakes. The temptation to expose these as retaliation feels irresistible, like justice finally served. But this path is self-destructive. Every relationship is a two-way exchange of information. The very moment you start leaking their secrets, you reveal something far more devastating about yourself, that you cannot be trusted with confidences. Everyone around you, future employers, potential allies, new partners, is silently observing how you handle endings. They're not asking whether your anger is justified. They're asking whether you can be trusted with discretion. If you spill everything when hurt, you announce to the world that you are unreliable. Your short-term vengeance ruins your long-term credibility. The damage is not confined to your rival. It stains your reputation permanently. Machiavelli himself advised that if harshness must be delivered, it should come all at once, whereas favors should be distributed gradually. By revealing secrets in rage, you destroy your own long-term leverage. Strategic players know that silence is not weakness, but power preserved. When betrayed, they hold secrets in reserve, keeping them as future leverage instead of squandering them for fleeting satisfaction. Adopt this as your code. My silence is my sharpest weapon. Now let's examine the theater of competence. When you feel insecure, inadequate, or overlooked, your instinct might be to compensate with words. You exaggerate your expertise, interrupt to show importance, or over-explain to prove your knowledge. This verbal overcompensation, however, fools no one. Instead of demonstrating strength, it announces your insecurity. The more you try to perform competence, the clearer it becomes that you doubt yourself. You think you're inspiring confidence, but in reality, you're providing entertainment and confirming weakness. True expertise never needs a loud announcement. Genuine confidence does not beg for recognition. Those who are truly capable allow their actions, their results, and their consistency to speak for them. The problem with competence theater is that it makes you predictable. Once others notice the triggers that spark your need to prove yourself, they can manipulate you endlessly. They can press the right buttons, provoke your defensiveness, and extract information simply by making you feel underestimated. In trying to prove your worth, you actually hand over power. Machiavelli remarked that nothing great was ever achieved without risk. The risk of appearing temporarily overlooked or underestimated is far smaller than the danger of exposing yourself through desperation. The strongest performers in any field allow their work to shine in time. They are comfortable letting others underestimate them in the short term, knowing that results will inevitably reveal their value. Their restraint, their silence, and their patience are forms of armor. They let achievement create their reputation instead of trying to craft one through constant self-promotion. Repeat this phrase as your anchor. My work proves my value, not my words. These traps manipulative vulnerability, gossip economies, clashes with authority, revenge through exposure, and the theater of false competence all have one thread in common: the misuse of speech. Words that feel natural in the moment, whether offered in anger, in kindness, or in insecurity, can become the very chains that others use to restrain you. Protecting yourself is not about being cold or detached. It is about practicing discipline in how, when, and with whom you share. Compassion without caution, honesty without boundaries, and pride without restraint all guarantee eventual downfall. To thrive, you must adopt a new relationship with your voice. Treat it as a tool of strategy, not just a release of feeling. Offer support without revealing your inner map. Participate in conversations without donating ammunition. Accept unfairness from authority with composure while proving yourself through action. Preserve secrets even when hurt. And finally, Let your deeds, not your desperate declarations, be your stage. If you can do this, you transform your speech from a liability into an asset, and you remove from others the single easiest way they can control you. When life corners us with overwhelming expectations, pressing demands, or sudden responsibilities we can't yet handle, many people reach for the easiest escape. They make promises. At first glance, promises feel like lifelines. They seem like instant answers that can silence pressure, calm others, and momentarily restore control. Yet, in reality, every commitment you make without the resources to back it up becomes a ticking debt that will eventually come due with interest. This is the prison of promises, the illusion that words alone can purchase trust or stability. In truth, what promises often buy is temporary relief in exchange for long-term damage. A commitment spoken too quickly is like writing a check from an empty bank account. It satisfies in the moment, but when it bounces, your credibility shatters. People who rely on promises instead of actions often reveal desperation more than strength. Promises act as shiny bandages, covering wounds that are never healed, and eventually, those coverings fall away, exposing reality in its raw form. Rather than confronting the present challenge with substance, those trapped in this cycle manufacture imaginary futures that never arrive. They don't solve problems, they inflate expectations. And when those expectations collapse, the fallout destroys trust far more than silence ever could. Part of why promises are so intoxicating is that they cost nothing up front. With a few words, you can pledge to improve, deliver, transform, or achieve something remarkable. You don't need to invest anything immediately. No resources, no skills, no results. The payment comes later, when those words are weighed against reality. That is when reputations fracture, trust erodes, and people learn to view you as unreliable. Each unkept promise isn't just a small slip. It becomes a permanent mark against your dependability. Repeated enough, these broken commitments tell the world that your word is little more than noise. A promise may win you a moment of approval, but when it fails, it proves you'd rather escape discomfort temporarily than protect your long-term integrity. Niccolò Machiavelli warned of this centuries ago when he said, "Those who build solely on the will of the people build on mud." Hope and words, like mud, may hold form for a moment, but they cannot withstand pressure. And this is what most promises are: structures made of mud. Both the one who constructs them and the one who believes in them eventually sink when the ground gives way. People are eager to trust your words because your promise often solves their problems too. But when it crumbles, they're not just disappointed in the situation, they lose faith in you. The wisest individuals operate differently. They commit less, but deliver more. They avoid making loud guarantees and instead surprise others with results that surpass expectations. This is how reputations for strength, competence, and trustworthiness are built, not with grand vows, but with steady, consistent proof. They understand that it's far better to be underestimated and later admired than to be celebrated early and later exposed as hollow. The truth is, your mouth has often been your greatest betrayer. Every word you release carries weight, and in the wrong setting, even a casual phrase can undo years of careful effort. Every conversation is like walking through a minefield. One slip can undo progress, reputation, or relationships. Each social exchange is a chess match, and your words are pieces. One misplaced move can hand victory to your opponent. And here lies the deeper lesson. The traps we've been discussing are not rare or unusual. They are part of everyday life, unfolding silently in offices, friendships. The real difference between those who rise in life and those who remain stuck is not always intelligence or opportunity, it's awareness. Victims wander through conversations carelessly, speaking as though words evaporate. Victors recognize that words never vanish. They are remembered, repeated, recorded, and at times twisted into weapons. Silence, therefore, becomes not weakness, but power. It shields you, protects you, and keeps your opponents guessing. Machiavelli, whose insights still echo through centuries, understood this with crystal clarity. He saw that success does not go to the loudest or most emotional, but to the ones who master restraint. Life is not won by people who blurt every thought, but by those who think before they speak, weighing the cost of every word. Each phrase you release into the world either tightens your position or loosens it. Every time you hold your tongue, you either preserve an advantage or miss an opportunity. The discipline lies in knowing the difference. And this principle matters more now than ever. We live in a time where almost every interaction is stored, whether digitally, socially, or in memory. Conversations can be screenshotted, shared, or echoed back in moments you least expect. A joke, an exaggerated claim, or an overpromise can resurface years later to dismantle everything you've built. In this environment, verbal discipline is not optional, it is essential. The ability to communicate strategically, not impulsively, determines whether you steer your own future or become a victim of your own reckless words. Think carefully about history's most influential figures. Rarely were they the ones who spoke endlessly, filling rooms with chatter. They were the ones who chose moments carefully, delivering words like arrows, precise, rare, and impossible to ignore. They spoke when their voice